Okay, right, brilliant. Okay, so good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this this presentation. As Mr. Lezard said, my name is Mr. Pettifer. I'm the curriculum leader for computing at Holmfirth High School, but one of my roles as well is online safety lead. So I work very closely with the DSLs in the school and deal with any online issues that may present themselves with our students at school. What I would like to do this evening is go through a few strategies and a few things regarding prevention and promotion of e-safety. To parents, we do this with our students. We do a lot of work around it with not only in the computing department, but I know that the RPSE department do things on e-safety as well, but we really specialize in the computing side of things and looking at how technology is used and how we can actually use it safely and responsibly, and teaching our young people how to actually do that as well. So the three key preventative methods that we're going to be looking at, the privacy settings, parental controls, which can be on different devices and things around your house. Also, I just want to quickly just approach the relationships with your child, and that isn't me trying to tell you how to have a relationship with your child, of course, but it's something just to look out for when we approach that bit. And then one key message at the end of this, which is check, check, check. And I will come to that towards the end to let you know what that is all about. So the top 5 apps that we see that are used by students today are the 5 that are there. So Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Those are the top 5 apps that are used. And are very, very popular with not only our year 11 students, but lower down the school as well. They are extremely popular. And the 3 logos that are down at the bottom here, so I'm just hovering my cursor over them now. So there's YOLO and there's the Omegle one there. These are 2 different apps that can be combined with the other social media apps. YOLO in particular is one that can be done, it can be anonymous posting onto Snapchat, so it would be people can actually comment on different things anonymously. We've had certain issues with this particular app, with people being very unkind to certain people, and it has caused quite a few upsets in school, and I've had to deal with a number of issues around this one. Omegle, which is one here, talk to strangers. Omegle, this is actually a random talk and chat app where you would sign into the app and it would randomly assign you another person to speak to, and that would be a complete stranger. It is one that students are aware of, and we do know that some students have used in the past, but we always make them aware of it to say that this is something that is ill-advised, and we don't advise them to be speaking to strangers online, particularly if it is a complete random function that is used to actually bring that up. The one in the middle is to do with gaming, and speaking on gaming. Now, the name of it has actually escaped me at the moment, but it will come back to me in a moment. It has escaped me, but it's where our computer gamers will actually get together as a group and speak with each other about specific games, or we'll talk to people who play the games with them. It can also mean that opens people up to speaking to people that they don't actually know, or have only met through the online world. So again, we will talk to our students about these and the dangers of using these apps if it's not in a controlled environment, or if it's not with supervision, etc. There is a function.
Mr. Pettifer, sorry, can I just?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I've just shared in the chat to you a link about the dangers of Omegle, particularly around child sexual exploitation and sharing of what's called nude images, and some dangers that the BBC uncovered in an undercover investigation around that site. So it's particularly dangerous around particularly sexual-based online behaviours. So if you click on the chat function at the bottom, you'll be able to have a little read through that article that just highlights some of those dangers. Sorry, Mr. Pettifer.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah, so I think that it's really important that when we talk about e-safety as well, we talk about the things like what could potentially happen. I mean, even with the metaverse at the minute, there is another BBC BBC report that actually had somebody go into one of the metaverse chat rooms, and some of the things they were experienced and they were subjected to, or their avatar was subjected to, was actually quite shocking. So we do have to bring these things to light to students if they are using these particular apps or these particular ways to access the internet and information. So moving on to this slide here, so for the group chat function, if you use WhatsApp and Snapchat, there is the ability to create group chats with lots of multiple students included in the chat, and they get added to the group. We have seen in past that a lot of people do get added to these groups, and they don't actually particularly want to get into those groups, but content is actually sent to them, and whether they have actually been active in the group chat or not, they will still actually get images, videos that would be saved to their gallery. Just even if they look at it for a second, all the images and they will be and the videos will be saved into their gallery on their device. Now, that's to say that they have not been involved in the chat, that would be fine. However, there is also the idea of involvement by proxy or by association. We advise that if they are involved or they get added to a group chat that is not something that they want to be part of, then to remove it straight away, remove themselves straight away and actually block the group or block the person who has added them. That way they would not be able to be added into that group again by anybody in that group. So that would be what we advise to do. It's something to watch out for as well. Just if you feel that that your child has actually had, or the student has had something sent to them, just have a look on group chats or look in their gallery. If there is anything in there that might be something that you would not expect, then it could be that they have received something from a group chat that is not appropriate. So in terms of the privacy settings, now the privacy settings for lots of different apps, when you sign up to these, and I'll go through these quite quickly because I'm sure that people have set their privacy settings before, but they are automatically set to default public whenever you sign up to any of these sites. And as we will explore some more of these, so Facebook here, if you go into their settings, their privacy settings, you can edit that function and set it to a more private lockdown version of that. And again, with Twitter, we can protect your tweets. We do this, we speak to our students as well about making sure that whenever they have a social media account, a personal account, they make sure that it is completely private, all the way through from Instagram, Snapchat, etc. And we show them that this is the functionality of how to actually do it. So it's just going straight into the settings, the cog normally at the top of the screen. You can set your settings to be private, that only your friends can see what you are posting, and they are only able to comment on that as well. So making sure again with that it is only people you know or is in your friends list that are able to see that. We also have explored the two-factor authentication, so meaning that it isn't only your password that you put in to log into your app or your social media account. You can actually make it so that you log in with your password, and then it can send a text message to you to actually make sure that it is you, to verify that it is you that is logging in. Some people have actually had it in the past. Some students have had it where people have been able to access their account because they have given away their password, or somebody has guessed their password. Having this on their apps or having this on their social media profile pages actually does help minimize the risk of somebody taking over their account and maybe writing or posting something that may put them in danger or put them into a bit of trouble. And the thing with with mobile phones as well, so for mobile phones, you can have the apps on your phone. You can also access them off the laptop or tablet. The privacy settings normally do link to your phone from the internet site. So if you log into on your computer, Facebook, for example, those settings will actually be set for your phone as well. So they'll be exactly the same. But it is always worth just checking to see if the settings are actually the same. Because sometimes the social media companies do like to change things, and they don't tell you, or they send you an email saying we're changing our policies, and right at the bottom in the fine print they do say we're resetting everything to default, so everything is public. So it is always worth just checking to see if your mobile device actually marries up to your device on your phone, and the settings that are on there too. If text bullying occurs, so people are sending text messages or messages through WhatsApp or Snapchat, etc., smartphones can actually block numbers, or you can ask the network provider to change your number. So if you are being harassed by someone, you can change your number or block the number itself to stop that actually happening. And one thing that I've put at the bottom here, Snapchat and other apps as well for messaging, they do have counter apps. So some students still believe that the image that they take on Snapchat will only be visible for 10 seconds and then will disappear. However, there are some apps that are available that will capture that image and then be able to share it with other people due to the sophistication of the app itself that is countering it. Also, students have realized that they can screenshot what has been sent to them. So that would be another method. So it's not a case anymore that Snapchat you can get, it will delete after 10 seconds the image that or the video that has been sent. So the parental controls part, this is something that I've talked about with parents quite a few times, and there are some aspects of this that you probably are aware of, but there are some that it'd be useful tips just to maybe to help to set up and restrict what your child looks at when they use the internet, and also some that will help to set some certain time frames or even certain devices of when you can access the internet or which devices can access the internet at certain points. And these can be set up for PC and on Mac. So in terms of PC, Windows settings in your control panel, you can actually operate as an administrator account, and you can set up parental controls, which again will allow you to set up what your child can look at, what they're available to see, what times the internet will be available to them. And the same thing for a Mac. Again, if you open the system preferences under the Apple icon and choose accounts, you can set what accounts can see what and what times those accounts will be available. One thing that always is an upset for students is when we tell parents that browser histories can be checked. So browser histories will show you what the student has been looking at in their recent history or over a period of time. And it is a function that is in all of the web browsers, everything from Microsoft Edge all the way through to Firefox and Google Chrome. And they normally are in the Internet Options section and then looking into history. There is the ability to obviously clear histories. So it may be that this is something that students are aware of and they are able to clear their history, but it's something that if you are worried about certain things that your student or your child has been looking at, you can actually go into history and have a look and see through what has been seen and what has been looked at. Is also a function on phones as well, to look for history and see what has been looked at. Unfortunately for us, in looking in terms of history, there has now been what's called an incognito mode built into a lot of web browsers. This actually restricts what information is visible, such as browser history. So it's actually quite difficult sometimes to see what a child has been looking at. So in the image that I've got down here, the bottom left, it does actually say what won't be saved. Things like browser history, cookies and site data, and information of form entry. However, it doesn't restrict everything. It's not. It doesn't restrict everything or doesn't make everything invisible to you. There are some things that will be visible. There are different apps and different programs that you can run that will counter the incognito mode or take it off completely. So one of the apps that I found down here was the disable incognito mode. You can get that from the Apple Store or from the Play Store as well for Google, and you can download it onto phones, PCs, and Macs, and that will counter this particular thing. There are other ways to do it on a PC, like there are certain scripts that you can run, and if you do need those, or if you would like me to send them to you, I can get them into the help sheets as well, or the little booklet. just to say that we can disable incognito mode. So it makes it a lot more difficult for children to hide what it is they're actually looking at. In terms of devices and making sure that they are secure and locked, it baffled me in my previous school where some students didn't actually have a keypad lock on their phone, and going through this actually helped them realize how important the security was of their phone. Android phones, Apple phones, all have the ability to have a secure password, whether it be a keypad number, a password, or a certain motion that you can have on your phone, or a pattern. You can set these up to make sure that your phone is safe and nobody can log into it unless they know this code or pattern. This is on the Apple devices as well. So Apple devices, even iPods, iPads, can have this set up. So it's something that we will generally say to students: make sure that you've got a password on it to make sure that your device is safe. Parental controls in terms of the computer games consoles. Now, obviously my students will not forgive me for this. However, I'm going to give a little bit of insight into how to set up parental controls on PlayStations and Xboxes. If the backlash comes my way tomorrow, then I'll be fine with that. I don't mind. If there is an opportunity for you to actually get onto your child's PlayStation or Xbox, then you can set up parental controls, which does include things like timings when you can actually have it online, and actually the playing time as well, which is in for PlayStation 3. This is in the security settings, and you find parental controls. They're very simple to actually get through and find where they are, and to set up different permissions for the Xbox itself. Again, for PlayStation 4, exactly the same. Into settings and look for system, and in the settings you actually find parental controls as well, which will allow you to do the same thing. And the most recent PlayStation 5, it looks exactly the same. It's the same thing. Parental controls are there, and you can set up the parental controls per user for that particular device, that console. And on Xbox 360 as well, there is a family mode, so you can actually set the family mode to restrict what it is that the user can do, which is in the console safety settings. Again, on the Xbox One, it's the same thing. You can set up a child default, more private mode, all the way through down to the adult mode. But if it's for that particular account, you can set it to a child mode, so it's more private. It's a bit more restrictive of what can actually be seen, etc. Or you can set up custom settings, which would make it sort of you can allow certain things to be seen, or add extra restrictions if you feel you need to. One of the things we don't tell our students, but we do speak to parents about, is actually making sure that your internet service provider or your Wi-Fi router is set to it has a certain setting on it as well. So it has so for Sky, there is a broadband shield which you can set up to restrict again what can be seen by every device in the house or by certain devices in the house. And that is accessed through the My Sky app, or it can be accessed through the My Sky account on your web browser. And as you can see here, the shield can be set up to have different ratings for what can be accessed and when. And it also can actually say what certain times of the day that Sky can be accessible, or the Wi-Fi can be accessible. So if you don't want it to be accessible through the night, or from 9 o'clock till 7:30 in the morning, then you can say when it will be active from and until. And other internet service providers do the same thing as well. One of the things Mr. Blezard and I have talked about, and the pastoral team have talked about, is how parents can actually monitor their child's phone, because we all know that it's a very secretive thing when students have their phones and children have their phone. They don't want us to see what's on there, and one of the ways that we can actually help, we can suggest, is using some of these apps that you can download onto your phone, which would actually allow you to monitor your child's phone. And that would be anything from messages they receive, photos they get, calls that are made and received, from all the various apps that are on their phone. So some of the market leaders here that are very good for this sort of thing. That we've got KidsGuard Pro, which is an Android, and the market leader for Android and Apple that we've looked at is this mSpy. It does sound like we are trying to spy on our children if we're using one of these things, but if we are also thinking we're trying to keep them safe, this would be something we would advise the parents to try and make it so that you are fully aware of what is going on your child's phone, excuse me. They do have a cost to them, but I think in terms of making sure your child is safe, I think the cost would be minimal in comparison to keeping your child safe. Other ones that we've found as well and are in the market. So the Norton Family Premium or Premier, that is one that is quite popular. Questodio, that's another one which is actually there's a free version of this, but it only offers basic protection. And Spy Bubble as well, which is for Apple, is another one that does similar functionality to the ones that we've mentioned above, like mSpy, but it will have a bit more limited functionality depending on which version you go for, the free version or the paid version. We talk about webcams as well, that webcams, if you have a webcam on your computer, most of them are built in nowadays, but still some do have a separate webcam. It is always worth putting a password or a passcode on the webcam to prevent people actually hacking the webcam and trying to use your webcam when you don't want it to be used. Selecting the actual webcam itself in the start menu of your device and looking for the properties, you can go to that then and have the options to set a password before the camera is actually enabled, or before it actually pops up and says, let's activate the camera. So I know I've whizzed through quite a lot there quite quickly, and if there are any questions, if you could drop them into the chat for us, that would be fantastic, and we'll cover them towards the end, or when Mr. Blazard asks me to. In terms of relationships, now in school, obviously, that form tutors and the pastoral team work very, very hard with our relationships with our young people, making sure that we feel that they are safe, and if they need anything from us, then we can speak to them and give them advice and help in whatever way we can. And obviously, your relationship with your child is incredibly important. And if they do approach you and ask you for advice, it's something that is really important. It will actually help massively for them to actually know that you're there to support them, even if it's something that they're trying to speak to you about is actually quite upsetting for them, or it may be something that they feel they might be getting into quite a bit of trouble about. It's really massively helpful for you to be there for them to approach you and ask you for the advice, and be there for them to listen to them. Should anything happen, or should this sort of thing happen where they've approached you and something has happened on either their Snapchat or social media, or even a text message, the advice is to get evidence of what has actually been sent. So screenshots or images that have been sent, to keep those, block the account or block the number that is being sent in them, and also to disable their own account. And on most websites, there is this COP button and an internet safety button where you can report things. It will go directly to the police and the organizations that work with COP, and you can then bring the evidence into school and alert us in school, and we can then deal with it at our end. And if we do need to send this to the police and get the police involved, then we would advise to do that if appropriate. So the last little bit is to do with checking and making sure the last thing there, check. Sometimes settings can actually change when we have different social media things. So Facebook and social media and Twitter, Snapchat, etc. They always send out the email to say we're upgrading our policies or updating our policies, which does mean that they would change settings as well, and they hide that in the fine print. So it is always worth checking if there has been a change to make sure that your accounts are set to private. New apps are developed all the time to counter other apps, and also the latest apps that will come out maybe to do something, maybe make anonymous comments on different things. But it's always worth checking which things are the new apps, which are the more popular ones. It's something that we do in school, and we send out our e-safety newsletter as well, with different things to do with different apps and which ones are the more popular ones, which ones we might want to look out for. Check settings and update regularly. Particularly with your hubs at home, your Wi-Fi at home, and if they need changing, then change them back to their securest setting at all times. And making sure that it's as private as possible and locked down as possible will help to make sure that not only yourselves will feel a bit safer, but your child will feel safe as well. And so that's everything that I wanted to speak through this evening. And thank you very much for bearing with me as I went through it. If you do have any questions at all, then please drop them into the chat for us. And myself and Mr. Blazard will try and answer those in the next 10 minutes or so if we have any more questions. And thank you very much for listening again. Thank you very much for your time this evening. We do really appreciate you joining us. So yeah, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please drop them to us.
Yeah, Mr. Pettifer, we've got one question which I'll come to in a minute because it is a technical one, but just a final thought really from me in terms of the DSL. A lot of incidents occur recently in school around large groups on social media, so WhatsApp and Snapchat predominantly, where there's groups of sometimes 50, 60, 70, and most recently we were made aware of a WhatsApp group called Year 7 Holmfirth High that had over 110 participants in it. And when we uncover these and we start speaking to parents, or parents contacted, or some children come forward because they've seen things in that group that they weren't necessarily thought they might see. So things of violence are shared in there, things of drug use images are shared in there, sexual-based images are shared in there, and they maybe innocently join that group thinking I am in Year 7 or I am in Year 8, and there's a Year 8 WhatsApp group. And then very quickly they're subjected to witnessing things that they didn't think they want to see, or you wouldn't want your child to see. But it almost becomes that sort of peer pressure situation where if you're not in the group, you're not sort of in the in crowd, which seems really bizarre to us, because you wouldn't walk around the school with a group of 100 people sharing things with each other and speaking to each other. But on an online world, that seems to be the done thing. So it's just making sure that you speak to your child that when there is these large groups that happen of certain year groups or certain houses at school or certain form groups, that sort of monitoring what's being shared on those, because people are free to share things and your child then is in that group, they click it and they're going to see things. Also, they're a breeding ground for online bullying. And these online bullying can go on well into the night. So the person who's the victim of that has no escape from that whatsoever. So they go home on an evening, and that online sort of bullying and saying unkind things to them can go on well into the early hours of that night. And that's obviously really detrimental to that young person who's the victim of that. And if we all think back, sort of our school days when social media wasn't there, that victim would not have that bullying would not persist well into the early hours, because people wouldn't be able to communicate in that way. So in terms of the effects of online bullying on young people, it's much more severe now when you're the victim of that. And sometimes young people don't realize that something really small in terms of an unkind word can be the tip of an iceberg when 50 people are saying things like that, or 60 people are saying things like that. And they're the sort of incidents that are coming into school and we're trying to unpick and deal with at school. In terms of things that happen if your child happens to become a victim of online bullying or grooming or anything like that, the key thing for us is really to build a picture, because we can't access the child's phone when they're at home. Only you can do that. But also when they're on Snapchat, if they take screenshots of messages, the receiver gets a notification to say that message has been screenshot. So a lot of children are hesitant to do that because of the repercussions of why you're taking screenshots, what you're going to do with it. So the best way to do that is, if your child comes to you and say, these things are happening to me, I'm a victim of this, is to use a secondary device. So use your own mobile phone and take a picture of their screen, because then you will have the evidence of that, rather than the the participant who sent it to your child, knowing that you've got the evidence, and then you're not going to get that additional repercussions. But it's difficult because young people are young people, and they're exploring and they're chatting to each other. And it's just sort of being mindful that these things that start quite innocently of a little tutor group, WhatsApp group, can very quickly, and in our experience that we've dealt with incidents this year, become quite nasty and unpleasant, particularly around certain students, and sometimes for no reason. They've just picked an individual student that they want to start speaking about, and that obviously then spills over into school and has secondary knock-on incidents of other things that could happen in school as well. So just be mindful of those sort of things that, and some children who never, would say those things to people's faces, would never say unkind things to people's faces, sort of feel they've got this free license to do it online because they're sort of not face to face with them. They're in the comfort of their own bedroom at home, and that there potentially might not be any repercussions for that. But if you're the victim of that, that's really, really unpleasant, and it's persistent because you can't escape. So they're sort of things really that, as the DSL, we try and speak to children about all the time, and sort of putting yourself into the victim's shoes, and something obviously you can speak to your own children at home about as well. One technical question from a parent, Mr. Pettifer, is how does, and I hope I've said this right, Kaspersky Safe Kids compare with the Parent Control apps? I don't know if you've heard of Kaspersky.
Kaspersky, yeah.
There you go, that's the one.
Yeah. I don't know personally, but I can actually look into. I know Kaspersky are actually one of the better companies out there for their antivirus software and their protection software. So I would think that it would be up there with some of the best ones.
Yeah. The parent that asked that question, if you are still online and you'd like us to just have a little look in further information, if you want to just drop your number or your email into the chat, because obviously it'll only come to me and Mr. Pettifer, we can have a look at that and have a look in more detail if you'd like that. If not, then that's fine. And that's all the questions that have come through. So like I say, and then just secondary what Mr. Pettifer said, and thanks for his time this evening. I hope you found that useful. We will put the recording of this online as well, and we'll put the booklet online so you can refer back to that as well. And I think the other thing, just be mindful, and really as an adult and myself, I like listening to Mr. Pettifer to remind you to have that 10-minute social media sweep up of your settings and checking that everything's still secure and that people don't find things that you might not want them to as well. So thanks to Sarah, we've done a round of assemblies with the students as well recently, so they've had the similar sort of child version of this information. And any concerns you have, please do contact the school. We're always here to help and support. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Pettifer.